Thank you so much for being with us. You are part of a series that we call the Whistleblower of the Year interviews. So let me introduce the topic for our viewers. It is an honor to have you today and speak with you. So every year at Constantine Cannon, we are a firm who represents whistleblowers from all over the world, from all walks of life. And we specialize in representing private sector whistleblowers who expose corporate fraud under a series of U.S. whistleblower reward laws. So we have the Securities and Exchange Commission whistleblower program, the CFTC whistleblower program, whistleblower reward program as well. The IRS has one. And then we also represent clients under the False Claims Act. So every year we have what we call the Whistleblower of the Year contest. And you are one of the candidates for this year. Now, I must say that you will have some serious competition, okay? So some of the other candidates that have been nominated include Sophie Shang. So Sophie Shang is a former data scientist of Facebook. She was fired this year, and she brought some very serious allegations about Facebook not doing enough in terms of preventing fake accounts and some very serious political manipulation in elections around the world. The other candidate is Chris Smalls. So Chris Smalls is a former employee of Amazon, and he was fired for organizing a work stoppage in Staten Island, New York. The other candidate is Rick Bright. Rick Bright is a former U.S. government official. He was working as part of the COVID-19 vaccine efforts, and he brought some concerns about the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine. He was fired shortly after that. And then the other candidate is Dr. Li Wenlian. Dr. Li unfortunately passed away several months ago. He was one of the first Chinese doctors in the Wuhan region to express concerns about the COVID-19 being an epidemic. And he was silenced, unfortunately, by the Chinese government. He became infected and passed away. And then we have you. So let me introduce you to our viewers. You are Xavier Justo, or Justo, if we use maybe a little bit of a French pronunciation. You are known as the One Malaysia Development Berhad whistleblower, or the 1MDB whistleblower. And we are so honored to have you. And I personally hope that you win the title of Whistleblower of the Year. We will be submitting that to a vote shortly, and we will be interviewing the other candidates. So I am Carolina Gonzalez. I'm a senior associate in the whistleblower practice of Constantine Cannon. And today I will have the honor to speak with you, and hopefully you can tell our viewers your story, okay? So let me start, Xavier. I'd like to kind of understand where you come from and what you were doing before you became involved in this massive scandal known as the 1MDB scandal. What were you doing? Where were you living? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thanks for inviting me to this contest, but it's not something very important to win the contest. I feel privileged to be with you today. So regardless of who is going to win the award, I'm very happy to be with you today. So I'm a Spanish and Swiss citizen. My family immigrated to Switzerland early 60s. I was born there, and I started my career in the banking industry in the 80s. At that time, it was quite easy to make a career in the banking industry. So that's pretty much what I did from 1987, that's when I started at UBS. And I left Switzerland to go to Asia in 2009. So I've been in the banking and finance industry for more than 30 years.
Okay.
So I left Switzerland in 2009. I sold my shares in the company that I owned, and because after more than 20 years doing that, I was like, I had no more fun doing the portfolio management. So I decided to live with my girlfriend at that time, who now is my wife, and went to Asia for a few months. We wanted to settle down there, and early 2010, I had a call from one of my very best friends at the time, who was Mr. Tarek Obeid. Obviously, he's not my best friend now, but this is part of the history. So he asked me to come to London to be the number 3 of the company he had there, PetroSaudi, because they receive a lot of money and he needed somebody he could trust to run a few business there. So that's what happened. I left and I joined Petros. I left Thailand in February, March 2009, and I flew straight to London to work as number 3 of the PetroSaudi company there.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit about what PetroSaudi, where was this company? What's the history behind this company? And then how did this company got a deal with 1MDB? And if you can tell us a little bit more about what is 1MDB? So it's a sovereign wealth fund. What does it do? And what was this deal about? But tell us a little bit about the story behind PetroSaudi and the owner.
So PetroSaudi was created in 2005 or 2006 by Mr. Tariq Obeid and one of his kind of a friend, Turki bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. He is one of the 17 or 19 sons of the previous king of Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah. So they created this company in 2005 or 6, but it was only a name, a very good name, by the way, PetroSaudi. When you hear the name, it makes you think that it, in a way, it's related or it belongs to the Saudi government, but that was not the case. So they choose and they bought this very beautiful name, and they tried for a few years to do some deals in Argentina and in other countries in South America, but with no success. They got a loan from a UK company called Ashmore, but at the end it was nothing was done. So in September 2009, PetroSaudi signed a joint venture agreement with this Malaysian sovereign fund, whose name is 1MDB, One Malaysian Barrel Development. It is the sovereign wealth fund of Malaysia. So the money in the fund was supposed to be invested in some projects for the good of the Malaysian people. But what happened, if I can make kind of comparison, PetroSaudi had nothing except a name. 1MDB had a lot of money, and the guys inside the 1MDB, meaning Jolo and others, they needed to take some money out of Malaysia for themselves. So the only way they found is to create joint venture where they will put some cash and the other counterpart will put some assets. So the deal was for 1MDB to send a couple of billions of US dollars, and for PetroSaudi, in order to meet the requirements of the joint venture, to brought in assets. But they had no assets, and I can confirm that because I was already working for PetroSaudi when they were this almost non-existent company from 2006 until the moment I left for Asia in 2009 in August. So when I left in August, PetroSaudi had nothing, and out of nowhere, by the grace of God, in 4 weeks, the value of the company went from having 0 assets to being evaluated for more than $3 billion. So what they did, technically speaking, it's a scam, but that's the origin of the scam. So they had no assets. So what they did, they signed what is called the farming agreement with an oil company, Buried Hills in Canada. This company had some assets in Turkmenistan. So PetroSaudi, they signed this farming agreement, which is pretty much a lease. You don't have the ownership of the oil field. You just get some proceeds if it works or not. But in order to incorporate that to the PetroSaudi assets, they needed somebody to evaluate that as being part of PetroSaudi. So PetroSaudi found quite a well-known guy in the oil industry. The name is Ed Morse. It's quite a senior guy. So he signed a letter of engagement with PetroSaudi, and he had to evaluate these assets in Turkmenistan that didn't belong to PetroSaudi. So what they mentioned, what they wrote in the letter of engagement, in the scope of work, is that the evaluator, Mr. Ed Morse, had to evaluate these specific oil fields, but it's written, but he has no the authority to investigate who are the owners of those titles of the oil fields. So what he did, he said, this is valued for $3 billion, and that's it. With this, the scam was started. PetroSaudi had the assets, fake assets, and 1MDB had the real money. So they created this fake joint venture where 1MDB sent this to $1.8 billion in cash, and PetroSaudi put nothing.
My goodness, that's a lot of money. Now, were you part of the negotiations of the joint venture, or you hadn't joined PetroSaudi?
No, I wasn't part of the negotiation. Of course, I wouldn't have joined PetroSaudi. Believe me. I had better things to do. So I left in August 2009, and the joint venture was done in end of September 2009. They were able, in 4 weeks, since the first meeting with this infamous Jolo, to create the companies, to build the whole structure for the deal, to send the money, and to take the commission. This was done in 4 weeks with the complicity of bankers, and I'm so sorry to say that, a few lawyers, and it was done in less than a month. They were able to establish a scam of almost $2 billion.
Now, so that our viewers can get a sense of this, so Jolo, tell us a little bit about this individual. We now know, because of the scandal with Goldman Sachs and the role they played in practically underwriting part of the bond offerings that had to do with 1MDB. It was more than $4 billion. We now know that Jolo, had this lavish life and was hanging out with celebrities in the U.S. and he was financing, Hollywood movies. Apparently, part of the money that was looted from this sovereign wealth fund ended up in the making of The Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, this is like this. It can't. I mean,
you can't invent that. You can't. It's too good or too big to be true, but that's the reality. They finance a movie with stolen money about scams. So,
which is precisely what they're doing. Now, tell us a little bit more about this character. I mean, how did he get into, was he a Malaysian? How did he get into this negotiation? Was he close to the government at the time? If you can tell us a little bit about what the government was doing, who the prime minister was, and what was the thinking behind the structuring of this deal. We now know it was a huge scam, but who is this guy, and how did he get to such a prominent and such a key role?
So first, to have a scam, you need criminals, but you need different kinds of criminals. The ones like Tarek Obeid that are desperate for money, but they don't have the financial ability to create structures, offshores, and so on. And Jolo has something in common with Patrick Mahoney, the number 2 of PetroSaudi, that I'm sorry to say that they are quite brilliant uses the system. So they will be able in an hour to create the structure that is needed offshore in Seychelles, foundation, whatever, in Luxembourg. They will use the best lawyers. They have this mental ability to play with this game. But Tarek doesn't have this ability. He just has the contacts. He had the contacts in the Middle East, as Jolo has the contacts. So you need people of contacts, and you need people that are good for structuring deals. So when you put them together, you see the result. So this Jolo, I met the guy a couple of times. Honestly speaking, it doesn't strike, at that time, it didn't strike me as a genius, but he's very good at what he does. He's, as a criminal, he's very good. He deserves to finish in jail for the rest of his life, probably, but he's very good at what he does. But if you meet him socially, you will not, you can't imagine that he's the guy, that is the brain that did this the PetroSaudi, that did the Goldman Sachs, that did the and others. He did it with the Chinese. So he's quite brilliant at a very young age. When he did the PetroSaudi scam with 1MDB, he was in his 30s. It's not that he had 20 years of experience, but he had the contact. He had the contact in the Middle East. He was very close to the stepson of the prime minister at that time, Mr. Najib Razak. So with the knowledge, the financial abilities, and the contacts, he was able to create that.
So when you get the call from Tarek asking you to, join, get back to PetroSaudi, move back to London, help us out, and then you get back to London. I think you said in the beginning of 2010. So after the deal had been signed, so meaning that PetroSaudi had somewhere $1.2 billion. What was your thinking? What was your role? What did Tarek want you to do? And most importantly, when did you realize that things were off?
So I joined, it was something like middle of February. And at that time, there were still not the final offices of PetroSaudi. They had a small office with 4 part-time employees in a part of London, but really nothing classy, nothing sophisticated. But they said we received a lot of money, but we are waiting for the new offices in Curzon Street to be finished. So we moved in quite soon to these new beautiful offices. We could have put probably 100 people inside, but we were like 7, 8 maximum. But there was a lot of money. Mr. Obeid bought a new flat for like £8 million. Patrick Mahoney, a chalet in the Swiss Alps for probably 5 to 10 million, a house in Notting Hill. So there was a lot of money. But what you have to understand is that it was a company with 6, 7 people in London, not more, maybe 8 at the end. So you had the number 1 and number 2, Mr. Tarek Obeid and Patrick Mahoney, the 2 brains of the deal. And I was the number 3. They asked me to come there because I'm quite a trusted guy. I will never steal from anybody. So I was running the office there. I took charge of the Venezuela operations and other things like this. But we never, and when I say we, it's Xavier Justo, the legal team, the accountant. We never had the real numbers of the deal. The only papers, the only bank statement that we had for all the time were the JP Morgan in Geneva bank's accounts, where the legit 300 million were received. You have to keep in mind that out of the 1.8 billion that was sent by Malaysia, 1.5 billion were taken out as commissions. So this left 300 million for PetroSaudi to run the business. So that was my official figures for me and for all the staff. We read things in the press that they signed a multi-billion-dollar deal, but we had no confirmation. Every time we asked Patrick or Tarek, it said, this is for the media. It's not like this. So I couldn't know, and nobody could. I couldn't, and I still, as of today, I can't comprehend how they were mentally able to take 80% in commission. They took 80% as commission.
So who took this commission, Xavier?
So,
And based on
what I can tell you is that between Tarek Obeid and Patrick Mahoney and Prince Turkey, we're talking about roughly $500 million that went through their account. $500 million. Okay.
and
The rest
facilitated by
went to
some banks, right? Presumably facilitated by some banks. Like, you know, if Xavier Justo all of a sudden gets $200 million in his account, I mean, that must raise some sort of pretty red flags. What happened?
it's extraordinary. Everything is pretty much now on the public domain. But can you imagine the first tranche of the payment, the first money sent by Malaysia was $1 billion, which is a lot of money, even for a Swiss bank. So what they did, this money was supposed, and it was the joint venture agreement, is supposed to go to the joint venture account. So what they did, they split it in two. They sent 300 millions to PetroSaudi joint venture account in JP Morgan, and the rest, that's unbelievable, because we speak about 2009, when there is a lot of compliance officers, rules, regulation, legal teams, and so on and so on. So what happened, and you can check that. I didn't bring the papers with me because it's in the public domain. So Malaysia sent 700 millions to an account number. They didn't specify the beneficiary because the beneficiary had to be PetroSaudi joint venture. So they didn't mention that. So if you check the emails from the corresponding bank, which is Deutsche Bank, it's going to the top, to the head of 1MDB, we will be asking the head of 1MDB, the head of 1MDB will ask Jolo and Tarek and Patrick. At the end, the reply will be, please credit Good Star Limited Seychelles. So even with that, the bank, the compliance officer, I think it was blamed at the end, but or a fine of a few $1,000s. But the money was accepted. So it became legit and it was laundered. Just with a few phone calls saying you don't, and a few emails, you haven't mentioned the beneficiary name. Sorry, I'm asking my boss, blah, 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 blah. And in a day, it went back to please credit Good Star Seychelles. And it was done. 2009, Swiss banks.
So Xavier, when you were working and you were seeing all these red flags and you were, you know, asking questions, what was happening? Because this guy, Tarek, was your friend. And then when did you decide, you know what, I've had enough. I think it's time for me to pack my bags. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, honestly speaking, I didn't leave because of anything illegal that I saw. There was a lot of money around. I mean, we were flying to Venezuela for the deals we had there. We flew only with private jets. When Tarek went to dinner, he was taking the most expensive bottle that you can imagine, was bringing bottles from another hotel for 20,000 pounds and so on. So there was a lot of money. But you have to, I mean, we don't need to be naive. The oil business, it's about commissions. It can be 3, 5, 7 or whatever. But nobody could imagine, and I couldn't, that they took 1.5 billion in commission. So I saw a lot of money around, but until the moment I left, and even after that for a while, I didn't see the illegality of the deal.
And when did you leave, and was there an argument on how much money was owed to you?
So I left because there is a saying that when people become rich, they become crazy. So that's a fact. I saw that with Mr. Obeid. We was probably already at that time not very mentally stable. And but when you are not mentally stable, you are a cocaine addict and an alcoholic, and you receive a few hundred millions. So the door is open to realize all your fantasy, to all your vices. So it became quite crazy. At that time, I was living happily in London with my girlfriend, now is my wife. And at one stage, I had enough of this permanent behavior. I was fed up, and this created a distance between us. But I was still doing my job. I didn't want to be part of the nightlife with him. So we had an incident one day. I missed a flight for New York, and he started to talk to me in a bad way. And I told him, please, I'm not one of the others. If you want to talk bad to them and they accept that, fine. But you know who I am. So we had an argument, and he started insulting me during the night. And I said, okay, now I'm leaving. Should I ask you, your lawyer, for my severance package? And he said, please contact my lawyer. He wrote to his lawyer, please accept the numbers from Xavier as being mine. So well, that's what I did. I sent an email with some numbers to his personal lawyer.
Okay, and so this is 2011, right?
Yes.
When you decide to leave, then how come, can you explain to our viewers, because, in the public domain, obviously we now know the story, but we want to ask you all these questions. So you leave in 2011. What did you do after leaving PetroSaudi? And then how do we get to 2014, 2015, when you decide to leak this information to the media? How did that come about? And after you left, when did you decide to have a copy of the files? Can you walk us through that process and why you decided to do it?
Well, it's very simple. So I left PetroSaudi in April, May 2011. We stay a few months in Europe with my girlfriend, and we decided to go back to Asia end of 2011. I don't remember the month, but it was end of 2011. We bought a house there, bought a big piece of land next to the house, and we started building a resort. That was 2012 when we bought the land. We got married in 2014. My son was born in 2014. So it was quite busy times, because believe me, to build a resort in Thailand, it's an adventure by itself. Not to mention being a father for the first time. So I was not with the PetroSaudi story anymore. But Mr. Obeid, being what he is, he was quite in a frequent way sending me indirect messages through common friends that he fired me in London because I was lazy, because I didn't do well in Venezuela, and so on. Stupidities. But at one stage, it went that during my wedding in 2013, one of my guests, one of my friends, who was also one of his friends, was drunk and told me that Tarek proposed him $20,000 to disrupt my wedding. So that was too much. So I wrote to Patrick and Tarek and said, okay, I've been nice with you because what we agreed on my severance package was not paid. So now it's over. Now I am going back to our verbal agreement of 2011. So please pay me what is owed to me. So this took time. So at first they say maybe, maybe not. And I said, I'm not blackmailing you. And I have this on record. This is part of the criminal evidences against them. I never blackmailed those people. I was constantly asking for the money that was owed to me. Okay, but this finished in 2014. My son was born, so I had pretty much nothing more to do with PetroSaudi. And I think it was just before the birth of my son, I got a call from an English lady, Claire Castle-Brown. She introduced me as Claire Castle-Brown, a journalist fighting for Malaysia and fighting against corruption. And she wanted to talk to me because she knew who I was and that maybe I could help her and or give her some information. And I told her, if you want to come to Thailand, I'm more than happy to talk to you. So she came. We met 2 times. We become good friends, and now she's probably one of my very best friends. We have been through so much together that we have a bond for eternity. So I told her, I'm not trying to play the best guy on earth, and I told her, Claire, I have pretty much all the information on PetroSaudi. I don't know all the details because I have 227,000 emails This is all the story of PetroSaudi until my departure in 2011. There is a lot of things inside. I have seen a few, because when I was in Thailand, from time to time, I was opening the file. But if you are guys that knows IT, if you start to open a file with 227,000 emails, it takes hours just to have the program started. But from time to time, as I was not busy, I was opening and trying to find information. So I told her, Claire, I'm just asking for the money that is owed to me. So if you find me a buyer, I'm not asking 5, 10, 20 million. I could have asked for a lot of money. There are ways you can. If I wanted to blackmail those people, I would not ask for my 2 million. I would have asked 20 or 50 millions. They had hundreds of millions. But I kept asking, and this is on record. I've become a father. I need my money. You have been playing with me. You have been abusing me. Now it's time to pay your debts. So they didn't. So Claire contacted me in 2014, so a few years later, and I told her what I just said. If you find a buyer, because I think I may be in some troubles if I give you the files. I didn't imagine the troubles I will be facing, obviously. So a few months later, she told me that she met somebody that could be interested in buying the files, a media owner in Singapore and in Malaysia. So I went there in February 2015. It was the owner of The Edge and some of his associates. So we spent the whole day discussing about the files, the political situation in Malaysia, the corruption machine that 1MDB was, the involvement of Jolo, the spending that they were doing with these people's money. So he asked me how much you want for that. He said, well, I said, Claire, it's 2 million. But he said, how do you want to be paid? I said, I mean, take the file, because after spending one day with those people that I knew the situation in Malaysia, and when I said the situation, there are poor people in Malaysia. Malaysia is a rich country. They have oil, they have a lot of things, but you have a lot of poor people. So at the end of the meeting, I said, because it was a turning moment for me. I said, please take the files. If you want to pay me, pay me. If you don't want, that's fine. I don't want anything now. I mean, it's up to you. I'm going back to see my wife and my son. I've done what I felt I was obliged to do, morally speaking. So I gave the file. I went back to Koh Samui in Thailand, and that was it. Until the moment I was arrested.
What happened?
3 months later.
So walk us through that moment when I'm sure was it a phone call that you got? Was it the police who came over? Who filed a complaint against you? And why exactly were you arrested? What were the charges?
So to make it short, because it's a very, very long story with a lot of anecdotes. So we are in June 2015. My wife went to Switzerland with my son to introduce my son to our family and friends there, and I was supposed to join her a few weeks later. So it's around the 20th or 21st of June. I was supposed to receive the visit of the immigration department, because we had pretty much finished the resort. So they were coming to renew the work permits and to see the progress. So it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I will never forget that moment. The maid was there. He said, there are a few people and a few cars that are coming. And I looked through the window and I saw 6 to 10 cars and 10 to 20 people coming to my house. And I swear it's true. I thought, okay, because there was this new military regime in Thailand that was just there for a few months. And my thoughts were, okay, they are taking the immigration very seriously now. Yeah. So I opened the door. A guy came towards me, said, Mr. Justo, how are you? I didn't recognize him, but maybe I wasn't sure that I knew the guy or not. So I put my hands towards him, and in a blink of an eye, I was like handcuffed on the back, thrown inside the house, 10, 15 people inside talking to me in Thai. And I told them I don't speak Thai, so we have a major problem. So they wanted me to sign a paper written in Thai, and I said, there is no way I will sign anything in a language that I don't know. So magically speaking, the guy had another paper written in English, of course, that I refused to sign anyway. And I saw the name of PetroSaudi and Patrick Mahoney. So at that moment, I realized that it was coming from them. So they searched the house to take whatever they could, old phones, broken iPads, whatever they could, just to build a case. So they sent me to the local police station. And there was a nice local police guy that talked to me. And he told me the charges attempted blackmail. So they said, you can call your lawyer, but I couldn't get in touch with my lawyer. So the police sent me 2 lawyers, a couple, and they were quite nice, let's say, crooks, but nice. So they said, this is the offense. It's attempted blackmail number, whatever. It's a very minor offense, so you will be bailed out without problems. They said the only problem is that you have to go to Bangkok tomorrow because the charge have been put in the Bangkok area. So I was able to call my wife through the maid at the phone. So I told Laura, don't be upset. I'm just arrested, but I'll be back home tomorrow. It's okay, don't worry. It's very simple. So no, I went back home 18 months later.
So you were in prison for 18 months. Did you actually get a trial? Did you sign a confession? So they were accusing, PetroSaudi was accusing you of attempted blackmail. So they knew about the leak? Do you think they knew about the leak by now?
Yes, of course, because I was stupid, and we will talk about potential stupidity later on. But 18 months, it's 547 days. I counted every one of them. So I'm arrested. I'm transferred to Bangkok by the Bangkok police. There were like 3 or 4 of them, very nice with me. They put me a scarf in my hands, not to see the handcuff, because Koh Samui is a very small airport, and I knew at that time pretty much everybody. So we arrived at the Bangkok International Airport, and we're walking towards the exit, and there is a group of like 10, 15 military or police, a bunch of them. And we are going towards them. I said, but this is not for me. I mean, I'm there as a alleged blackmail attempt, so this can't be for me. But yes, it was for me. So they gave me to those guys, like, very impressive. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not for me. We're waiting the big guy, whatever, the bomber or pedophile, whatever. But nobody's coming. So we're starting to walk again towards the exit. And at the exit, there is like 15 vans with a lot of police. They have these shotguns. They have the hand grenades. They have, I mean, the full show. I mean, it's like probably if at that time Osama bin Laden was arrested. Sorry.
I lost you for a while there. So you were telling us that there was a massive police operation.
Yes.
Getting.
So we exited the airport, and there is these 15 vans full of police, again with a lot of security, all those SWAT teams from Thailand, and we crossed Bangkok 100 miles an hour. It's unbelievable, and I'm still thinking they are doing a mistake. So we arrived at the local police station. It was late. Said, you're going to court tomorrow for the bail, and but tonight you have to sleep in a local police station. I said, okay, why not? I was thinking about going home tonight, but if it's another day, it's still okay in a way. So I tried to sleep in this cell, but of course I couldn't. So next day I'm sent to the court. My lawyers are there and say, okay, so don't worry, we're going to apply for the bail. You have to stay with them. It's an hour or 2 process. They took the money because I gave them my debit card, credit card, whatever. They took a lot for doing nothing, but that's okay. That's fine. So I'm at the court. There is a lot of press outside, but I'm still okay. Probably it's the normal way of doing business there. So before the chief of the investigation is saying, we have to go this way now. Okay, why not? And I go to the offices of the chief of police of Bangkok. It's pretty much the one of the most important people in the Thai government. So he's there, and he says, "I'm going to introduce you to a Scotland Yard officer." And I'm like, "What? Okay." And at that moment, I'm trying to lose like my focus. I'm like not comprehending what is really happening. So there is a guy that enters the room, tall, very well dressed, perfect British accent, obviously a policeman or a former policeman, and he tells me, "Good morning or good afternoon, I don't remember. I'm Paul Finnegan from Scotland Yard. This is an international investigation between Thailand, Malaysia, and the UK." And I'm starting to be a little bit afraid. And he said, "Don't worry, you have not done very wrong. You have done something bad, but that's okay. If you help us, if you work with us, you'll be home very soon." And I said, "Well, what do you need to do?" He said, "You will have to sign the confession we are going to tell you to sign. You are going to see whatever we want you to say." Sorry. And I'm telling him, no, there's no way. I'm not signing any kind of confession. I haven't done anything. So we are in Thailand. There is no way. And he said, it's very easy. It's either you do that or you go to jail. And I said, "No, I'm not going to sign anything." He said, "Okay." So he tells the chief of police, "Send him to jail." So they put me chains, and they put me in a bus with zillions of prisoners, and I was moved to the Bangkok prison.
Wow. So did you sign the confession? What happened next?
So what happened next is that they put me in the worst cell of the Bangkok prison. So I don't want to be very specific, but it's probably a 20, 30 square meter cell with 50 to 60 people. There is no bed, no mattresses. There is everybody is naked because it's so hot inside. There is a hole with some water, and you have to shower, do whatever your body needs to do in this hole with a bucket of water that everybody is using. So I spent there 3 days, really thinking I was going to die there, because there is no way you can survive that. And after 3 days, I was called for a visit. But instead of going to the visiting center, I was sent to the offices of the director, of the number 2 of the prison. And there is this Mr. Paul Finnegan. And it's, "Xavier, this is your very last chance. It's either you cooperate with us, or you will spend 10 years, or you will spend 9 to 10 years in this particular cell." So I had no choice, honestly speaking. There is no way any human being can comprehend what is living inside the prison in Thailand without being there. You can't imagine the level of inhumanity, illegality, immorality. It's so I didn't think for probably more than half a second. I told him, "Whatever, now give me the papers, and whatever you want, I'll do. I just want to get back to my family." So we spent a few weeks there. I was writing every day the confessions. He was coming with Mr. Patrick Mahoney in the visiting center of the prison also. So both of them were cut.
Were visiting you.
Yes, Mr. Patrick Mahoney, the guy that put the charges against me, was visiting me in prison, but not in the visiting center, in the offices of the number 2 and sometimes of the number 1 of the prison, with Paul Finnegan, with a Swiss lawyer, PetroSaudi. They choose, hire, and pay a Swiss lawyer from one of the biggest law firms in Switzerland. You may have heard about Lalive. It's not a So one of the top lawyers of La Lid was hired and paid by PetroSaudi to defend me in Thailand. He got more than $200,000. He visited me he visited me 6 or 7 days max. 6, it's a top. Of course, he was not there to defend me. At that time, I didn't know. I had no, again, you have no experience in this. It was my first experience. So whatever was done there, I thought it was pretty much legit. So I did these confessions for 2-3 weeks where I'm accusing me of everything, of being a bad guy, of having stolen the data, of working with the Malaysian opposition, of working with journalists like Claire Brown and the Edge people to overthrow a legit government. That's what they wanted me to write. And that's what I wrote, because I just wanted to go back to my place.
So what happened next? You spent 18 months in prison for a crime you did.
What happened is that when they say, work with us, cooperate, sign, help us, you will be sent home before Christmas. So it was 5 months. I said, I can manage that. 9 years or 5 months, that's okay. So what happened is that in November, when the deal was supposed to become reality and was like supposed to go home, of course there was no deal. I was sentenced by the Thai justice to 6 years of prison. But as I pleaded guilty, because they wanted me to plead guilty, they cut it my sentence by 2, so I was officially sentenced to 3 years. So after 5 months, those people, they disappeared. They left alone, my wife and I. So that was the moment when we tried. My wife contacted the Swiss authorities. She contacted the FBI, the journalists, the press. That was the moment she started to make noise. So yeah, it was 547 days.
What we see with many of our clients is that, unless they have a strong network support coming from either friends or family, in your case, you're very, very lucky man to have a wife that fought for you until the very end. So after you come out of prison, because they coerced you into signing a confession that was far from any truth, what happens next? Because Rajib was doing his campaign, his re-election campaign in Malaysia. So what happens after you are released from prison?
So after these 18 months in prison, so first thing I did, it was to go on holidays to spend with my wife and son for a few weeks or months, just to try to get back to a kind of normal life, which was not easy, but not difficult. It's just, you need time. So it's very difficult. I'm very okay. I mean, thanks to my wife, I've been through that almost untouched. But going back to a kind of normal life, it was quite difficult. So, but again, if you have friends, family, and love, you will survive pretty much everything. So I had to find a job. I did a few jobs, small things, but you face so much obstacles in your own country. I'm still unable to, as I said, I'm still unable to open a bank account. I was unable to find a flat for me and my family. It's a daily fight. Small things maybe, but it's a daily fight. So, but that's okay. It's the consequences of your choice.
Unbelievable. So after you leave prison, go back or try to go back to having a normal life, in Malaysia, there's this huge election campaign. The opposition starts organizing itself, and then lo and behold, the opposition wins. And Rajib is no longer a prime minister. Do the Malaysian authorities contact you? What happens then when you travel to Malaysia? Do you start cooperating with them? Tell us a little bit about that. And then obviously, PetroSaudi has always claimed that you were just a blackmailer, that you were just trying to scam them. And pretty much fabricated a smear campaign against you and your family.
So what happened is that
Oh,
a few months after being back in Switzerland, we filed with my wife a criminal complaint against Tarek Obeid and Patrick Mahoney and this fake cop Paul Finnegan. This was in October 2017. And also the Swiss justice, they opened a criminal investigation against Patrick Mahoney and Tarek Obeid. They asked me to cooperate and give testimony against them, which I did because I was just now telling the truth. So this was in 2017, 2019. And in 2018, so Najib Razak lost the elections. I mean, I was not expecting that. I was praying for that, because I do think that Malaysian people deserve better than him. So Dr. Mahathir won the election with his coalition. So I went there and I met some politicians, Dr. Mahathir, Anwar Ibrahim, and a lot of those people, because my name now, maybe less now, but this is it's not about ego. At least at that time, and probably until now, it's the Justo name is part of the Malaysian history now. And the government was overthrown. The Najib's kleptocrat government was overthrown, not thanks to me. I mean, I don't want to take all the credit for me. You need a lot of people. So you needed the evidences that I provided. You need people with guts to publish that. And Claire Rucastle and The Edge were very courageous and brave to do that. She was threatened. They tried to have a Interpol arrest warrant against her. The guys from The Edge, the newspaper was stopped for a few months. They tried their best. So, but the most important part of overthrowing the government is not me or Claire. It was that the Malaysian people, they voted against this kleptocratic regime. So, but being in Malaysia, I went there to live with my wife until March, when this coalition government was overthrown by another coup. So it was very pleasant, because I mean, we are all human beings. It's better to be loved and appreciated than to be hated. So during my almost a year in Malaysia, there was probably not a single day where people were not saying thank you for what you have done for my country.
So Xavier, after the ordeal that you went through for just doing the right thing, would you do it again?
I mean, yes, of course. I mean, it's very satisfying. It's not because any kind of celebrity. I'm too old for that. I'm not looking for that. But I'm a father. I have a son. My son will know the story of his father one day. Sorry, with a bit of emotions.
Don't worry, don't worry. Nowadays, what is your life like? What are you hoping for? What is your plan, if we can still plan in today's crazy world?
I mean, there are a few things that I want in life. I want those criminals to go to jail for what I have done to the Malaysian people, because we were discussing the other day with other people about financial crimes that are not so bad as blood crimes. That's not true, because in any financial crime there are side effects. If you speak about the 1MDB scam, people have been killed. Hussein Najadi, the creator of the bank there, was killed because of the 1MDB exposure. Kevin Moraes also was whistleblowing about the 1MDB affair. He was killed. I was sentenced to jail. I was unable to see my family for 18 months. So even if it's a financial crime, these people deserve to go to jail. They stole money that was supposed to go for building hospitals, creating new schools, improving the life of the poor. So they took that money for what? For drug, prostitutes, jets, yachts, partying, financing stupid movies. So that's one thing I want. I want these people to go to jail, not for what I've done to me only, for what I have done in general.
And how I mean, this is just another, it's shocking. Unfortunately, this is not the only case where we've seen that the whistleblower is hunted down by the perpetrators, and the perpetrators are simply not punished. So Mr. Tarek and Mr. Mahoney, are they, where is that, where are those allegations going? Do you think that they'll end up paying for what they did to the Malaysian people?
I mean, I'm doing my best. There is nothing more I can do. I'm helping the Swiss justice. I'm trying to go public from time to time. The case is full of evidence. Most people are criminals, but they still have some money. They still have money to pay for. They still have the money to pay for expensive lawyers, to find loopholes in the law, to be able to stay out of jail for the moment. They are still able to buy journalists. They're still able to buy PRs. If you have, if the viewers, if you have Twitter, and if you want to spend 5 minutes and have some fun, you put hashtag Xavier Justo on Twitter. They did, and of course it can't be only PetroSaudi. They did a press campaign against me at the end of September, where you have like 15 bloggers, sorry, that are pretty much writing all the same story. After a deep investigation, we found that Mr. Justo is not who he is. He has been managing drugs, money, and a lot of this stupidity. So, but there is nothing I can do. At the same time, I'm helping the Swiss authorities to have these guys sent to jail. But at the same time, Switzerland, my lovely country, is, in a way, I think, I never got the confirmation, Switzerland is investigating me for industrial espionage. So they want me to help, but again, at the same time, they're investigating me. So it's not easy. It's, as I said, it has been now more than 4 years since I'm out of jail. It's not a daily fight, but it's a non-ending fight. But at the end, if you give up, they will win. So I gave a promise to my wife that I will not give up before they're going to jail, and I will not give up. And I want my son to know the real story and the good story, where at the end, criminals go where they belong, jail.
So Xavier, just to kind of end our conversation, this has been an amazing interview, and I really want to.
I continue very well.
I want to thank you for your time, but my final question to you would be: what is your advice for potential whistleblowers, for people who are in a position similar to the position that you were in? What would be your advice to a person who finds him or herself in that very difficult position?
Okay, I mean, my simple advice is don't do it your way. I didn't know there is no diploma, there is no teaching in school or for how to do a whistleblowing act. So what I did at the end, it was good because it was the good thing to do, but it was done in a very bad way because I put my family at risk. I made my friends and family suffer because I did it by myself. Now you have lawyers, you have structures to help you. So if one day in your life you are involved in this and you have a choice to make, do what is good, do what you think you have to do what your father told you to do the good things and not the bad things. But you have to seek the advice of professionals, of competent people, because there are many risks. I would have done it again and I will do it again, but using specialized people. I would not have gone to jail. I would have been. My son is 6 years old. I have not seen him for probably a quarter of his life. He will get better with the years, but this is still something that they took out of me because I did not think a lot. I didn't do things properly. There are ways to do things.
So the fight goes on. I am more than certain that your son is very proud to have.
I hope.
I'm sure he already is. And like I said, I think you're the vivid example that behind a courageous and successful man, there's a very powerful and courageous woman. So I think that your wife, I mean, she's amazing. Proves what love can do, and your story is truly inspiring. I want to thank you for your time. I'm sure that our viewers are going to enjoy this interview very much, and I hope I can talk to you again and we can remain in contact. The fight goes on, and what you are doing is just remarkable. And I sincerely hope that those individuals who are responsible, coming from a country, like Venezuela, that has been looted, even worse than Malaysia. I have lived vividly how corruption actually kills and destroys people's lives. This is not just abstract financial crimes. They do have a real repercussion in people's lives. So I want to thank you. If it weren't for people like you, the world would be an even worse place. So speaking to you today gives me hope, and I'm sure that our viewers will enjoy this interview very much. Thank you so much, Xavier.
Thank you. Thank you for your good words. Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
have
much.
a lot to say about Venezuela if one day you are interested.
Oh yes, that's a conversation that we will have very soon. Thank you so much, Xavier. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for having me.
Bye bye. Take care.
Goodbye. Take care.